Alrighty. So for the last time when we talked about Book of Enoch, we had talked about the chapters 1 through 10. And yes, we stopped at chapter 10. We talked about chapters 1 through 10, which were basically the fall of the Watchers. So there's this class of angels that has to watch, literally, humans. And it doesn't seem like they have much of a job. They know a bunch of stuff, and they have all this information about things like metallurgy, but they're not allowed to share it with humans. And they're not supposed to interact with them. And at one point, the archangels only noticed there was a problem going on because there was this sudden flood of souls at the gates of heaven, screaming about some problem going on earth. So we can maybe assume or infer from that the Watchers weren't even reporting to anyone. They were literally just watching. That's their job. The Watchers had eventually fallen in love with some of the humans and decided to go and try to have a life. They shared some of their information, and unfortunately, when they reproduced with the humans, they ended up having giants. And when we're talking about giants, we're not talking about the stuff that maybe an apologetics pastor might discuss where, oh, they're just bigger people, but within the realm of possibility. When we did the calculations, these are people the size of mountains. They're 3.4 kilometers tall. Literal giants that I would say are even bigger than anything we would consider to be a giant in other folklore. These are ridiculously tall people, and as such, they ended up causing a big problem just because they couldn't be fed. That's all it really was. The humans tried desperately to feed them, and when they were unable to do so, the giants started eating people just to be fed. They started eating the animals in mass amounts just to be fed. So the reason that I want to say that is because none of this was done maliciously. This wasn't the Watchers saying, hey, we hate heaven, we hate God, all this other stuff. Unfortunately, though, this is how hell is created, and this is also where the Great Flood had started. And Noah was chosen not because Noah was awesome, it was because Noah was just not, his family just was not interacting with the Watchers. There was no crossbreeding with them, and apparently no information being shared between them. So Noah's family was spared for that reason. They were genetically perfect in that they were still genetically human. It wasn't that Noah's was like righteous in any sense that we would understand today. All right. Look at me with your eyes, not your fingers. I'm not sure what that was meaning. Noah wasn't the worst. Low standards, right. As we know just from the Bible story about Noah, he was a drunk that cursed his kids. He was not dad of the year. He was not productive citizen in the town of the year. This was not. He just was a guy that just wasn't a watcher. That was pretty much it. So that's kind of where we had landed on that. However, God decided to punish the angels. And this is where that, if you've ever heard of the idea that hell was created for the devil and his angels, and that a third of heaven was cast out. We didn't get any of that calculation yet, but this is where hell gets created. Okay. Look but don't touch is what I'm getting at. Got you. Oh, okay. I misread that, and when you wrote look with your eyes, not with your fingers, I read that as look at me with your eyes, not your fingers. I don't know where that came from. All right. How much of this book is in the Bible? That is a great question. There are pieces of references to this. And so one of these we are talking about here, and we did get into some of those references in the Bible itself when we talked about it last time. So this was pretty interesting stuff, I think, that it sort of explains a little bit more what's going on. The Book of Enoch, as far as we know, was written after the Torah. So this is why there would be some of those references in the New Testament, as opposed to like deliberate references in the New Testament, like the name Enoch in the New Testament. and the angel and hell reference in the New Testament, but there's not really a reference to it in the Old Testament. Also, it sort of explains this stuff a bit more. So you can think about it maybe as revelation, which is what this is supposed to be coming at you as. So if you're a person who does believe in gods and that sort of thing, you can believe in this as a revelation from God to explain a little bit more what was going on in Genesis. Or you can think about it as a fever dream or just fan fiction. That's another way to kind of think about it. So before we start, we talked a bit about an angel called Azazel. And Azazel is not one of the watchers that were mentioned. So when we had talked about the watchers deciding as a group to go down to Earth, we talked about a person that I basically said was the captain and then his squad leaders, his 10 squad leaders. Azazel is not among those names, and yet when Yahweh is issuing these punishments, Azazel's name shows up. So who is Azazel? Does he show up in the Bible? So I wanted to talk about these references here. Has anybody heard of the scapegoat? This, I think it's on the Jewish holiday of, I think it's Yom Kippur. Let's double check that while you guys are answering. Scapegoat Azazel holiday. I believe it's Yom Kippur. Yes, okay. So that's the Day of Atonement, okay? Has anyone heard of this ritual to basically put the sins of the town onto a goat and then to sacrifice the goat? Has anybody heard of that? So while you guys are talking about that, I'm just gonna, oops, that's not us. I'm just gonna get this next one ready, and large. That's what I want, so I can read it more easily. You mentioned the scapegoat last time, but didn't go into detail as far as I can remember. Okay. Has anybody else heard of the scapegoat? So we're gonna, you guys know what a scapegoat is, right? Just in English, because I know that there's actually a couple of you here. I don't think English is your first language, but you're very fluent in English. I just don't know if you know what a scapegoat is. So I can't think of any time I taught that word to any of my students. It's just not a word that comes up very often. I know I'm not your English teacher, but we can still get a little English going on. Also, I'm going to put my fingerless gloves on. It's very cold in this room. I don't know why. I've got all sorts of long thermals on. I don't know why this is going on. Well, I know the word, but I didn't know it was a biblical thing. Lots of things are biblical things. That is true. It's the kid we blame for everything. Yes. So the scapegoat basically was this setup where you have two goats and not just the one. And yes, I'm not a native speaker, but I'm familiar with this word. Okay, great. I'm glad that everyone's familiar with it. All right. So basically, the setup in Leviticus 16. Why don't we just read it, just because we can. And as we saw, it does not pop up in the what's it called? The King James Version. So I do want to go over this and then what is in the King James Version of this. So the Lord spoke to Moses after the death of Aaron's 2 sons. I'm sorry, I have to make this bigger. I'm really who died after they entered the Lord's presence and burned the wrong kind of fire before him. Wow, the wrong kind of fire. I do have a story about the wrong kind of fire. I'm sorry to interject here. We had I had a colleague who perhaps was not do not speak ill of the people who cannot defend themselves. Anyway, so the colleague had come to me and asked, hey, Miss Lemon, you know a bit about chemistry. And I said, well, hopefully you know more than I do since you're teaching it. And they said, well, I'm trying to get this colored fire situation where, you burn some different salts and then it makes the fire green or a different color, right? And I said, yep, yeah, I'm familiar with that. I remember doing that like in college or something. And so he said, well, I can't figure it out because they're not burning. And I looked at the setup and it was this little like alcohol burning lamp. And I was just like, this is the wrong kind of fire. You need the Bunsen burner. That's how I remember it from school. You're the chemistry teacher, but I think it's the wrong kind of fire. So now when I'm seeing this, that's all I can think of, the wrong kind of fire. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe we needed like extra hot fire, and that's just sort of it here. There's numerous kinds of fires. Yes, there is. It's just how hot that they burn. But I'm trying to think of, any kind of reference biblically about the wrong kind of fire. So if you read, like if you understand rituals and a lot of like religious ritual stuff that a lot of times people that believe in the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, they might refer to it as witchcraft. There's a lot of stuff in the Bible itself, or in this Abrahamic text, we'll call it, that really does just seem like witchcraft. So you're trying to enter the Lord's presence. I'm assuming this is in a tabernacle, and you're trying to enter the Lord's presence, and you have to burn a type of fire. You have to do a thing, Let's just really quickly look at the not esoteric. Let's see, fire as a fire element properties. Okay, fire, of course, is not an element in the classical elements, it is a classical element. It's not an element in the periodic table. So here we have qualities of energy, assertiveness, and passion. So this may be a reference to something about entering the Lord's presence, so entering Yahweh's presence. Let's see what you guys have said. In Swedish, we use the term sinnergoat. I don't know which word for the translation. Goat is going to be the one that you want to use. Buck and billy goat and even kid, which is the name of like baby goats, are called kids. That's more for people that breed goats. It's the same with roosters and chickens. So usually you would just call it a chicken, but for somebody who breeds them, they're usually called a cock and a hen. So that's how you refer to them because you're just used to dealing with them that way. So yeah, that hopefully can help out a little bit. There's also the Judas goat. It is taught to associate with the other herd animals and quietly leads them to the slaughterhouse. That's great. It gets paid with 30 pieces of alfalfa, I would assume. So anyway, yeah, burning the wrong kind of fire. I would imagine that it's not the fire itself that's the wrong kind, but the stuff that's burning. So there's a lot of these beliefs about clearing a space to make it sacred. So this would go back to beliefs that are not necessarily, we would associate them with the Abrahamic God, but clearly are. So you would do something like a type of thing that's called smudging or incense. So you would basically smoke a room where you would use some type of herb or wood to smoke a room, and then that's supposed to clear out a presence or set an intention or welcome a spirit or something like that. So that's what I would probably guess is happening here, that perhaps they use the wrong incense or use the wrong branches or something like that for the wrong fire. So hopefully that makes some sense. The Lord said to Moses, "Warn your brother Aaron not to enter the most holy place behind the inner curtain whenever he chooses. If he does, he will die. For the ark's cover, the place of atonement, is there, and I myself am present in the cloud above the atonement cover." That's pretty intense. So Yahweh's physically hanging out there. When Aaron enters the sanctuary area, he must follow these instructions fully. He He must bring a young bull for the sin offering and a ram for the burnt offering. He must put on his linen tunic and the linen undergarments worn next to his body. He must tie on a linen sash around his waist and put a linen turban on his head. These are sacred garments, so he must bathe himself in water before he puts them on. And so again, this is very witchcrafty, isn't it? This is very ritual stuff that we would maybe not associate so much with the Abrahamic God today. Aaron must take from the community of Israel 2 male goats for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. Aaron will present his own bull as a sin offering to purify himself and his family, making them right with the Lord. Then he must take 2 male goats and present them to the Lord at the entrance of the tabernacle. He is to cast sacred lots to determine which goat will be reserved as an offering to the Lord and which goats will carry the sin of the people to the wilderness of Azazel. Okay, so we have 2 goats, and the goats are supposed to be of generally equivalent age, quality, worth, that sort of thing. So they're supposed to be basically 2 equivalent goats. One of the goats is sacrificed to God. The other goat is sent off into the wilderness for Azazel. Does that mean that Yahweh and Azazel are the same level? No. So this idea here, if we look at it from within the context of the religion, the sacrifice goes to God, whereas this appeasing wandering goat that Azazel has to find goes off into the wilderness. So there's this, there is a difference in how they're presented. You can sort of think about it as when you give dinner to someone, you could spend time cooking a really nice dinner and present it and say, okay, you know, here I'm presenting this to you as my guest. It's a nice, beautiful dinner. It's a nice 5-course dinner, whatever, that you've cooked and you've spent all day cooking and you've imported, you know, lovely ingredients. And then the other dinner is just like, you know, you give somebody a cup noodle and you say, hey, you know, the water kettle is over there. Did you feed both people? Yes. But is there a difference in how that food was presented? Yes, absolutely. So that's sort of this idea here from just within like that religious standpoint. So if you're reading it without that context, you might think, well, if we're offering a goat unto God and we're offering a goat unto Azazel, that means they're equivalent, that God is going to forgive our sins and Azazel is going to forgive our sins as well. And that's not what it's about. Offering sacrifice to Yahweh is something that, I mean, it's been done. That's just part of a thing that's been happening. So you guys kind of probably have a background in that. Offering something to Azazel was more like, this is a payment for your sins. And remember, when we you know, maybe a goat is not super important to you. For people that breed these animals, you know, yes, you're breeding them to be used and eventually slaughtered, but you really care about them. I don't know if any of you have ever done any farming or known any farmers, but even though you know that you're going to end up, you know, this animal is going to end up on your dinner plate eventually or somebody else's dinner plate, you really do care about it, and it creates this weird, I would assume, this weird dichotomy. You know, I spent a lot of time on a chicken ranch growing up, because my uncle owned this chicken ranch, and he loved those chickens. He loved them, and yeah, we ate them, and he loved them, you know. So this idea that this goat is going off and nobody's going to get to eat it, we're not going to be able to use this goat as a good reproducing goat. So maybe the goat has good genetics, and we would want to use it to sire other goats or bear other goats, depending on the goat's sex. Now we can't do that, and it's just going off into the wilderness, and no one gets to use it anymore. And it was this idea that it's because of our sin that this goat is punished. So again, I know that it's just a goat, but it's not just a goat, especially to people at that time period. Let's see what you guys are saying in the live chat. He is omnipresent, so I assume he is present there in a high concentration. Well, he's in a cloud, so you can actually see him. Okay, I see why it's really a goat now. It's literally, yes, it's literally a goat. Yeah, I work with farmers, they do care. There are, of course, those who don't get too attached on purpose for good reasons. Right. I think if a farmer didn't get attached to their farm animals, I would understand it, but I don't think you could be a good farmer without caring about the animals. And of course, I know that does create this issue, because there's you're not living in the Arctic. There's plenty of food to eat. There's plenty of protein to get. There's no reason that this animal should die. So I would assume there would be some problems with that. We are like gods unto the beasts. We order the time of their birth and the time of their death. Between the two of them, we have a duty. Yeah, I would agree with that. So it's Terry Pratchett. So they are caring for it. Last time when we talked about, well, not the last Enoch time, but we did talk about this sort of lighthearted conversation. And it's this region that has that goat beauty pageant. They probably didn't have the beauty pageant at this time period, but that shows just this culture of really caring for these goats. So just to send it off, it's a punishment for the goat. Why do I want to hurt my goat? So it's just sending it off to Azazel. The other goat, the scapegoat chosen by lot. This is like voting. Okay. Will to be sent away, will be kept alive, standing before the Lord. When it is sent away to Azazel in the wilderness, the people will be purified and made right with the Lord. Okay, and this is again another difference between Azazel and the Lord. When Yahweh sees that you did this thing that he likes, he's going to bless you for that. Azazel doesn't have the power to bless you. Okay. Aaron will present his own bull as a sin offering to purify himself and his family, making him right with the Lord. After he slaughtered the bull as a sin offering, he will fill an incense burner with burning coals from the altar. So this is the right fire, right? That stands before the Lord. He will take 2 handfuls of fragrant powdered incense and carry the burner and the incense behind the inner curtain. And we're just talking about how everything here is a good time for... There's Azazel again. All right. Aaron's purifying, sprinkles the blood with his fingers 7 times over the altar. In this way, he will cleanse it from Israel's defilement to make it holy. Then he's presenting the goat. He will lay both of his hands on the goat's head and confess over it the wickedness, rebellion, and sins of the people of Israel. In this way, he will transfer the goat's sins or the people's sins to the head of the goat, and then the man specifically chosen for the task will drive the goat into the wilderness. And as the goat goes into the wilderness, it will carry the people's sins upon itself into a desolate land. When Aaron goes back into the tabernacle, he must take off the linen garments, blah, blah, blah. And then the man who is chosen to drive the scapegoat into the wilderness of Azazel must also bathe himself. So this is definitely a big old ritual. Okay. But what is going on here in the King James Version? Okay. Because as we've mentioned, this is not in the King James Version. All right. So instead what we get is, and the Lord shall cast lots upon the 2 goats, one for the Lord and the other lot for the scapegoat. That's it. We're not even mentioning Azazel. And he shall take a censer full of burning coals, full from the fire of the... Oh, sorry, that's not us. But the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented for the Lord, blah, 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 into the wilderness. So Azazel isn't even mentioned in this, which is kind of interesting. Okay. So this is Azazel in the Bible. And that's, again, in, some translations and not the others. Okay. So we're going to get into chapter 11. And in those days, yeah, we definitely have to get into chapter 11. So I could not find my charger today. We're just going to go through it. And in those days, I will open the store chambers of blessing, which are in heaven. This is Yahweh speaking. So as to send them down upon the earth over the work and labor of the children of men. And truth and peace shall be associated together throughout all the days of the world, throughout all the generations of men. So this is continuation from chapter 10, where Yahweh is saying that everything that I'm going to flood the earth, and I'm doing this because everybody's bad, and you guys are bad because you're bad. And now we're going to have post-flood earth, and it's going to be wonderful, and everyone's going to worship me, and everything's going to be back to how I want it to be. That's how Yahweh is speaking. He's basically very upset that people learned stuff that was against what he wanted them to learn. Their sin was knowledge, just as it was in the Garden of Eden, and so he's punishing them for that, and that's why the flood kind of happens. And so we end up with the post-flood earth was just basically an obedient earth. That's what he wanted. Let's go ahead and see what you guys are saying in the chat. You should make a specific spot for your charger. I definitely should. It was the migraine thing, right? You get your thing, you put it somewhere, and it's not, like, there's always a spot where my charger is, but with the migraines, you move something, and it falls down, or something happens to it, and you're just like, I'll deal with it later, and then you take your nap, you wake up, you have no, you just, where, I remember it falling down, but where did it fall down? That kind of thing. Migraines really suck. All right, so Yahweh just wants everybody to obey him. That's his thing. That's what he likes. For the next of these chapters, this is Enoch speaking. Okay, so this is an intercession, like an intercessory prayer or an intercession commentary for Azazel and the other fallen angels, and its announcement to them of their final doom, which is very interesting because when we go through the earlier chapters where we're talking about how Yahweh was talking to Raphael to make these announcements, and then he's also talking to Enoch, and now Enoch is the one that has to address the angels, which I thought was, what did Enoch do that was so great? You know what I mean? It's one thing if it's like, for example, if we assume the author is John, who wrote Revelations. John he's like, observe and report. That's what this guy's doing in Revelations. He's watching these things interact, and he's just not really making sense of it, and somebody might say something to him, and that's kind of it. Enoch here is taking a very active role. He's given the task of, hey, I'm Yahweh. Enoch, you're really cool. Here's some information that I got for the Watchers. Can you tell them? Dang, that's a big deal, you know, especially since Yahweh is sort of a faraway type of deity in some senses. You know, we just read in Leviticus, you can talk to him directly, as long as you burn the right kind of fire and do all of these ritual things. And here's Enoch just being Enoch, you know. So definitely found favor in Yahweh for some reason. Let's see, you know who doesn't demand obedience? Good old Lucifriend. I see. Yeah, Lucifriend, or Lucifer, definitely did not, you know, Lucifer would definitely be an angel that I would say is of the Watchers, or would sympathize with the Watchers for sure, and definitely sympathize with humans that, you know, how could God create you this way and then tell you not to be this way? That's not your guys' fault. You shouldn't deny yourselves the things that you're programmed to enjoy. You know, that's sort of Lucifer's idea. Let's see. Yeah, do what thou wilt, it shall be the whole of the law. Not even, and it harm none. Do what thou wilt. Right. Before these things, Enoch was hidden, and none of the children of men knew where he was hidden, where he abode, what had become of him. And his activities had to do with the Watchers, and his days were with the holy ones. So what this is basically saying is that when the Watchers had come down, Enoch kind of disappeared. Yeah, Noah's the guy that God is going to preserve his family line, whatever. Where is Enoch during all of this? So Enoch, nobody knows where he's at. So that's, I mean, the heaven knows where he's at, but his buddies don't know where he's at. And I, Enoch, was blessing the Lord of majesty and the King of ages, and lo, the Watchers called me, Enoch the scribe, and said to me, Enoch, thou scribe of righteousness, go, declare to the Watchers of heaven, who have left of the high heaven the holy eternal place, and have defiled themselves with women, and have done as the children of earth do, and have taken unto themselves wives, ye wrought great destruction on the earth. Okay, so we're going to pause this for a second, because this is written in a very clunky way. So basically, he's told, listen, you're righteous and you know how to write. So write this down and go tell it to the Watchers. Okay. So the Watchers, those guys that like really, this section here is just like throwing shade at the Watchers. Okay. Remember, they're already bound. They're already being punished. They had to watch their families die in front of their eyes. And here, Enoch's being told, yeah, those guys, the ones that had everything they could want in heaven, but they went away because, everything was perfect here, but they decided to go to Earth and do all this Earth stuff and be stupid with Earth people, and now they have to suffer. I mean, this is just like an insult to the Watchers. That's all that's here. It's just like, hey, Enoch, by the way, these people suck and I hate them. So it's such a, again, it's written in such a older English, and it's very wordy and stuff, but it's really just an insult to the Watchers. So this is what Enoch has to tell them. Ye have wrought great destruction on the earth, and ye shall have no peace nor forgiveness of sin, and inasmuch as they delight in themselves and their children, the murder of their beloved ones they shall see, and over the destruction of their children they shall lament and make supplication unto eternity, but mercy and peace shall ye not attain. Basically, Enoch has to go tell them, listen, as great as everything was, that's how bad everything is for you. So everything was perfectly good for you in heaven. Now it's going to be perfectly bad for you because you're outside of heaven. You're going to have to understand your loved ones. And notice it says the murder of their beloved ones. Okay, so this is not like God trying to set everything back and just like, bloop, they disappear. Remember, we talked about this from the previous chapters, where the Watchers had to witness the warring people on the earth slaughter their children and slaughter their wives. And this is going to torment them forever. Their families were killed because they were the ones that had created the families. These women would be fine and live out their natural life and not have to be having to cope with the fact that they had these weird giant babies and stuff. It's the Watchers' fault, and everything would have been fine. And this earth that they cared about, this earth that they loved, these people that they loved, they were killed. Even if it wasn't their wives and children, just the people they, hey man, let me show you how to make this thing. Oh, hey, let me teach you how to observe the stars. These friends that they're making, these, just sort of as we were talking about how the farmer cares for their goats or chickens, the Watchers cared for these people. Imagine how a farmer would feel if something that they did had caused the entirety of that species to die. So maybe they were having some kind of goat show, for example. And internationally, a bunch of goats came together to do this goat beauty show, for example. But because the farmer did something, the farmer's goat got sick, passed that sickness on to all the other goats at the show. Those goats went back home. They passed it on to all the other goats there, and all of the goats in the world died. Just imagine how guilty that farmer would feel. So this is sort of this same idea that they went and hung out with humans when they shouldn't have done that, and now this is what they have to deal with. When it talks about their wives and their children, but I would say part of the beloved ones of the Watchers were just everybody else that they observed, they got to know, they befriended. And all of these people, remember, every living thing on the earth, except for Noah and like a handful of animals on his ark, they died because of the Watchers' actions. That's awful, right? And then this is saying, and you guys are going to be sad about this for eternity, and you're going to beg for my forgiveness, and I'm not going to give it to you. And you're going to beg to at least be put at peace or at rest, and I'm not going to let it happen. And that's what Enoch has to tell these Watchers. That's pretty intense. That's a pretty intense thing. I feel like the Watchers we're kind of already punished, in a lot of ways. It says murder and not slaying. Right. The god seems like a fan of murdering kids. Yeah, in a lot of ways. And I guess kids again, too, with the goat reference as well that we just talked about. So what's going on in chapter 13? This is a longer chapter. So Enoch goes to Azazel. Sorry, this is not the longer chapter. The next one is. Gotta make sure it all fits. Okay. Thou shalt have no peace. A severe sentence has gone forth against thee to put thee in bonds. And thou shalt have not have toleration, nor request be granted to thee, because of the unrighteousness which thou hast taught, and because of all the works of godlessness and unrighteousness and sin which thou hast shown to men. So in a way, these angels, or Azazel himself, has become the scapegoat. And this might be why one of the goats has to go to Azazel. And you guys know about my cold air and runny nose situation, so please give me a second. All right. So now it's saying basically here that everything that has happened is your fault. We're putting all of this onto you, and that's why you're getting punished. Remember I is Enoch here. I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid, and fear and trembling seized them. Can you imagine that? These angels, these angelic beings that saw the creation of the world, they see this like little human walking up to them, and they just lose it. What has God done to us to do that? And think about that too. Think about being judged by a human. And again, if we go back to that, farmer kind of caretaker sort of idea, imagine being judged by one of your chickens. It's going to be weird, but it's going to be really scary at the same time. What are they going to want to punish, or what punishment are they going to want to give us because of what we've done to their people? That's sort of a freaky idea. Sorry, I have to highlight this because this is hurting my eyes here. And they besought me to draw up a petition for them, that they might find forgiveness, and to read their petition in the presence of the Lord of heaven. So they're basically begging Enoch, please, hey, you can write stuff down. Please write down everything we say. Go to Yahweh and beg him. He'll listen to you. Okay, he won't listen to us. He'll listen to you. Can you relay this message for us? For from thenceforth they could not speak with him, nor lift up their eyes to heaven, for shame of their sins, for which they had been condemned. Then I wrote out their petition, and the prayer in regard to their spirits, and the deeds of individually, sorry, I'm going to have to highlight these, and in regard to their requests, that they should have forgiveness and length of days. Okay. And I went down and sat in the waters of Dan, in the land of Dan, to the southwest, or south of the west of Hermon. That's that mountain where the watchers had descended upon. And I read their petition till I fell asleep. And behold, a dream came to me, and visions fell down upon me, and I saw visions of a chastisement. And a voice came bidding me, I tell it to the sons of heaven, and to reprimand them. And when I was awakened, I came unto them, and they were all sitting gathered together, weeping in Abel's Jael. I wish that I knew how to read these, which is between Lebanon and Sennacer, where their faces covered. And I recounted before them all the visions that I had seen in sleep, and I began to speak the words of righteousness, and to reprimand the heavenly watchers. What an interesting last few words there. So basically, he's going off to talk to God, and while he's sharing this information from the watchers, falls asleep. While he's asleep, this is when God gives him the answer in the form of visions and so forth. And so he goes back and he explains, this is what's going to happen to you guys. Okay. Says we have about 32 minutes remaining. All right. So the book of the words of the righteousness, and to reprimand the eternal watchers in accordance of the command of the Holy Great One. So this is sort of a preamble to basically say this is what this passage or this chapter is going to be about. It's me reprimanding the watchers. Okay. I was given these visions, and this is what it said. As he has created and given to man the power of understanding the word of wisdom, so hath he created me and given to me the power of reprimanding the watchers, the children of heaven. I wrote out your petition, and in my vision it appeared thus, that your petition will not be granted unto you throughout all the days of eternity, and that judgment will be finally passed upon you. Your petition will not be granted upon you. So that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Hey, I had this, I sent your petition to God, and God was like, no. And from henceforth you shall not ascend into heaven unto all eternity. And in the bonds of the earth the decree has gone forth to bind you for all the days of the world. And that previously you shall have seen the destruction of your beloved sons, and you shall have had no pleasure in them, but they fall before you on the sword. And so this is just saying, you saw this stuff and that was awful, and also it's still going to be awful. Your petition on behalf shall not be granted, nor yet on your own, even though you weep and pray and speak all the words contained in the writing which I have written. So it doesn't matter what you say. Basically, you can do everything perfectly, and you're still not going to get this this mercy. And the vision was shown to me thus. Behold, in the vision, clouds invited me, and a mist summoned me. And the course of the stars and the lightning sped and hastened me. And the winds in the vision caused me to fly, and lifted me upward, and bore me into heaven. Which sounds almost like Muhammad's night journey in a way, right? And I went in till I drew nigh to a wall which was built of crystals and surrounded by tongues of fire, and it began to affright me, because of course it would. You're in the air, lightning is speeding you up instead of killing you, right? And there's fire and crystals. Like, just imagine that. Just imagine there is a wall. So we don't know what this wall is. It's just a wall of crystal surrounded in fire. Just like crazy lapping fire, because that's just tongues of fire. It's just like all over this thing. That's going to be pretty intense. And the tongues of fire, and I went into the tongues of fire and drew nigh to a large house which was built of crystals, and the walls of the house were like tessellated floor made of crystals, with its groundwork of crystal, and the ceiling was the path of stars and lightnings, and between them were fiery cherubim, and their heaven was as clear as water. We are going to talk more about the different classes of angels, but the cherubim are basically these types of angels here. The idea of drawing cherubs as these cute little things, no, they're not these cute like little babies with these tiny little baby wings. They're pretty funky looking. I guess, amazing hair. I feel like it would be a really good drag queen look, I feel. Let's see. And I quaked, no, blaze with fire. All right. A flaming fire surrounded the walls. Its portals blaze with fire. So these are like the windows and the windows and the mirrors blaze with fire. And I entered the house, and it was as hot as fire and cold as ice. There were no delights of life therein. Fear covered me, and trembling got hold upon me. And as I quaked and trembled, I fell on my face. And I beheld a vision, and lo, there was a second house, greater than the former. The entire portal, like the door, for example, stood open before me, and it was built of flames of fire. And in every respect, it so excelled in splendor and magnificence and extent. I cannot describe to you its splendor and extent. This is a pretty intense vision, okay? What's going on here? What is this crystalline, fiery, ice burning kind of house? Okay, what is going on here? The floor was fire, and above it were lightning and the path of stars. Its ceiling was also flaming fire. And I saw therein a lofty throne. Its appearance was as crystal, and its wheels thereof were as the shining sun. So it doesn't seem perhaps a lofty throne that's also like a wheelchair, or you can move it around, basically, not literally a wheelchair. And from underneath the throne came streams of flaming fire, so that I could not look thereon. So there's the other type of fire, that's super hot fire. And the great glory, which would be Yahweh, sat thereon, and his raiment shone more brightly than the sun, and was whiter than any snow. None of the angels could enter and behold his face, by reason of the magnificence and glory, and no flesh could behold him, which is an interesting thing. I was actually going to say that, no human is supposed to be able to look upon the face of God, and yet he's in his presence right here. He's, he can't see maybe his facial features, but he knows his face is shining white. So that's kind of interesting. The flaming fire was round about him, and a great fire stood before him, and none could draw nigh him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, yet he needed no counselor. So this is also interesting. Nobody can be around him, and he's also surrounded by people, or some type of beings. And the most holy ones who were nigh to him did not leave by night or depart from him. And until I had been prostrate on my face, trembling, and the Lord called me with his own mouth, and said to me, Come hither, Enoch, and hear my word. And of the holy ones came to me and waked me. And he made me rise up and approach the door, and I bowed my face downwards. Pretty intense. When you're reading this, and when I was first reading this, I honestly thought this is where the Watchers are going to be bound. This seems like hell, doesn't it? It's you can't do anything. You're full of fear. It's burning hot and freezing cold at the same time. You're paralyzed just by its magnificence in so many ways. This seems like a prison, doesn't it? This seems very, very interesting, I think. Let's see what you guys say. This chapter is so damn long. It sure is. It sure is. It's quite long compared to the others. So Yahweh is responding to this now. Fear not, Enoch, thou righteous man and scribe of righteousness. Approach hither and hear my voice. And go say to the watchers of heaven, who have sent thee to intercede for them, you should intercede for men, not the men for you. See, again, this is just like slap. Okay? It's basically... your job was to, be the caretaker for humans, and now you're asking humans to take care of you? Not today, Watchers, not today. That's what Yahweh is saying. And so that's such a concise smack, Wherefore ye have left the high holy and eternal heaven, and lain with women, and defiled yourself with the daughters of men, and take yourselves wives, and done like the children of earth, and begotten giants as your sons? And though ye were holy, spiritual, living the eternal life, you have defiled yourself with the blood of women, and begotten children with the blood of flesh. And, as the children of men, have lusted after flesh and blood, as those who also die and perish. Therefore I gave them the wives, so that they might impregnate them, and beget children by them, and that thus nothing might be wanting to them on earth. But you were formerly spiritual, living in eternal life, and immortal for all generations of the world, and that's why I didn't appoint wives for you. For as the spiritual ones in heaven is their dwelling. So here is Yahweh again, just smacking them with this stuff. Okay? Everything was great in heaven, and you decided to go down and be of the people. So you know what? I'm going to punish you even worse than the spirits or the people, because you knew better. You absolutely knew better. I didn't give you wives for a reason. You guys went out and got yourselves wives. Oh my me, that is not what we're doing today. So Yahweh is like having none of this. He is absolutely set in his ways. His judgment is like, there was nothing Enoch could say. He doesn't seem to be upset with Enoch. He's just, asking him to write it down. But he's really upset with the Watchers. I mean, just, there is no mercy in any of this. So, and now the giants who are produced from spirits and flesh shall be called evil spirits in the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy Watchers. It's their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on the earth, and evil spirits they shall be called. So this is very interesting, because when we talk about the Watchers, or we talk about hell being created for the rebellious section of heaven, that's what it seems like the Watchers are. And so when we think of hell, we're thinking of the devil and his demons, or the devil and his angels. And also there's evil spirits, and that's the spirits of the giants. So that's sort of interesting. These are a separate kind of class. So perhaps this is the difference between the devil and, I guess, the high-ranking satanic or demonic angel rankings, if we can call it that, and then the regular demons. So that might be these guys here. Okay, so as the spirits of heaven, as for the spirits of heaven, in heaven shall be their dwelling. But as for the spirits of earth, which are born upon the earth shall be their dwelling. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth, and cause trouble. They take no food, but nevertheless hunger and thirst, and cause offenses. And these spirits shall rise up against the children of men and women, because they have come from them, or proceeded from them. This is a very interesting twist. Not just because this sucks, right? But remember, what did the Watchers want? They wanted to be loved by humans and to help humans. Remember, the Watchers had this information to share with humans. I'm just checking the time here. Okay. To share with humans and to basically bless them with knowledge. And now their own children, or the souls of their children, are going to do exactly the opposite. So they basically wanted to caretake for humans in a different way, better than what they felt, maybe better than what they were doing before. And instead what we have here are the exact opposite. And now forever, for as long as they are doomed to be tormented and can't even look heavenward, for as long as that happens, their children will be on the earth starving and thirsting and causing problems, hurting people and hurting these things that the Watchers were supposed to be caretakers of. So it's really a really messed up punishment, wouldn't you say? Especially since the giants didn't do anything, right? They were just the children of these Watchers. And so this is the last section here. It goes off to the next chapter, but it's a different section. There's like 3 or so books of Enoch. So from the days of the slaughter and the destruction and the death of the giants, from the souls of whose flesh the spirits having gone forth shall destroy without incurring judgment. Thus shall they destroy until the day of consummation. So this is Judgment Day. Okay, Judgment Day has not happened. If you're keeping track of, not just in the book of Enoch, but ever. Okay, Judgment Day happens, and that's when like the final battle on earth happens, the Armageddon. If you believe in a rapture or follow any of that, that's when all of that's supposed to happen. That's also when souls are supposed to be judged. So currently there should be no human souls in heaven or hell. They're all in their bodies, will be judged on Judgment Day, and then that's what this is talking about. So this is the Great Judgment Day. And so it seems that including the humans, or in the human judgment, the Watchers will also be judged. And over the Watchers and the godless, yea, you shall be wholly consummated. And now as to the Watchers who have set thee to intercede for them who have been aforetime in heaven, so before this time in heaven, say to them, you have been in heaven, but all the mysteries had not yet been revealed to you. And you know, worthless ones, and these in the hardness of your hearts you have made known to the women. And through these mysteries women and men work much evil on earth. Say to them, therefore, you have no peace. So even this idea that the Watchers had at least given people the ability to understand the movements of the heavens, like the stars, so they could make their own calendar and improve their farming. The understanding of how to use metal and how to do metalwork. So all of the intellectual gifts that the Watchers gave to them, Yahweh is now adding. By the way, that wasn't all of the information. There's more information. You just didn't get all of it. Because now you gave the humans this half information, they're going to end up hurting themselves with it. So, good job, Watchers. Good job. That's what Yahweh's saying. Like, Yahweh is being really like not just harsh, I would say just dragging the Watchers. I mean, he is really hurting these guys. Can you imagine, and even this little thing you maybe would have taken solace in, that you passed on information to them, you didn't even have all the information, and because of that, the humans are going to hurt themselves with it. So bang up job there, you guys. Good job. I hope you feel really good about that for all eternity. That's Yahweh. Wow. That's when you do read through the Bible, or the Quran, or those types of books, you already get the impression that Yahweh is not a nice deity. This, I would say, really underscores it. This is adding insult to injury, just compounds it so much. He is being so cruel to them, unnecessarily, I would say. It's bad enough that all of this happened, and you have to just keep spitting on them, at the same time. What are you doing? Not coming up with stupid stuff today because this is actually interesting. Oh, good. Which part of Christianity considers this book canon? I think we talked about the Ethiopian Coptic. But we can double check on that. But there's not widely. Yeah. A little knowledge is a dangerous gift. Right. So it's what a chapter, or what a section, I think we all need a break after that, just, can you imagine, just imagine being in that situation? Because I guess I really tried to look at this in maybe a different way. The Watchers were not so rebellious, they were just feeling bored and unappreciated or something, and now their whole everything has been torn from them, and as they're suffering, Yahweh adds to it, just with this psychological torture, not just physical torture, psychological torture as well. They were also already emotionally tortured, and now they have to deal with this on top of it. It's such an interesting thing. Were there any last minute thoughts about this? Please let me know. We have a few minutes left on my battery, so I just wanted to see what you guys had to say. And this is where we're stopping today. We're going to go talk next time about, you can see here how these sections go. So Enoch goes through Earth and Sheol. Sheol is this place of the dead in Jewish mythology. So we can go through that. And again, we're not going to go through all of it at once unless the chapters are very, very, very short. So we're going to go through that together. Yeah, thanks. I have some ideas on where it is. The next time, I'd like to do it on... This is my Sunday morning, so it's kind of fun to do a Bible study. So that's kind of fun for me. We will see if we can do it later on. We can see if we can do it tomorrow, because I hate to leave you guys on a cliffhanger, especially since this next journey seems to be very interesting. So I hate to leave you guys on a cliffhanger. So maybe we can even just get into it tomorrow. Does anyone want to just do it tomorrow? Same time? Assuming no migraine, and assuming charger is found. You guys just want to do it tomorrow? Because I hate I feel like this is such a juicy bit of information, and now I I want to get into it as well, but I don't know if you guys are feeling the same way I am with it. If to me, I feel like we're watching this really insane series or something on Netflix or something like that, and now it's a cliffhanger. That's how I'm feeling. But I don't know if you guys are feeling the same way. I'm trying to add to it, as if, during an oral retelling of this story around a campfire or something, just to try to add some of the, I don't know, the ambiance or what have you. So let's see. This time probably works for me all next week, okay? How long ago did this start? I missed most of it. It started about an hour ago. Yeah, actually almost exactly an hour ago. But yeah, let me know. I don't want this to die while it's trying to upload. So I am going to stop here. If you guys want to discuss it, please talk about it in the Discord. For those of you that are not part of the Discord, you guys can go to my About section on my channel, and there's different links to Discord. Actually, I think if you just go to my YouTube channel, just the videos, I think in the header, not the header, the banner, I think there's links actually in there. Yeah, we started an hour ago, so we're thinking this might be the time. If you check the live stream on the Discord, the live stream section, if you scroll up a bit, there's a screenshot that I posted of like a time and date converter, and I had mentioned thinking about my 9:30 on Sunday, but I guess perhaps more through the